Lacan, Psychoanalysis and Comedy is a collection of essays edited by Patricia Gherovici and Mania Steinkoler. It reframes the long-standing assumption that psychoanalysis is a discipline grounded primarily in tragedy, suffering, and existential deadlock. Instead, the editors argue that comedy and the laughter, wit, and absurdity it brings reveals something essential about the human condition and about Lacan's work in particular. Comedy, they contend, does not merely lighten psychoanalytic inquiry. It exposes the inherent failures, gaps, and impossibilities embedded within the symbolic order. In doing so, the comic becomes a privileged mode for encountering the real and for enabling movement within the analytic process. The first group of essays shows how comedy is deeply rooted in Lacanian theory. Drawing from Freud's idea that jokes mirror the operations of the unconscious, the contributors emphasize that humor is produced through the same mechanisms: condensation, displacement, linguistic play that structure unconscious thought. The moment of laughter is therefore a moment when unconscious truth escapes the ego's censorship. Comedy becomes the space where the cracks in the symbolic order are most visible. Language fails to capture reality, and this mismatch erupts as humor. For Lacan, identity itself is constructed atop an unavoidable gap between what can be spoken and what resists symbolization. The essays highlight that this structural failure is inherently comic. In the analytic setting, laughter always the analysant to gain distance from their own symptoms and rigid narratives. By laughing at their desires and contradictions, the subject breaks the fixed grip of symptom formation and opens space for new forms of subjectivity. The second part of the collection explores how comedy and tragedy intertwine in Lacanian concepts, particularly through the idea of tragicomedy. The superego, traditionally seen as strict and moralistic, appears in Lacanian thought as a figure that demands enjoyment. This paradox, being commanded to enjoy what one cannot enjoy, creates a darkly comic dynamic. The essays also reconsider the famous object A, the unattainable object that fuels desire. While its elusiveness is often read tragically, the repeated, futile, and often absurd attempts to grasp it reveal a comic structure. Figures such as Chaplin or Beckett exemplify this endless cycle of failure, elevated to a comic art form. The body becomes another key site of the comic. Slapstick, pratfalls, and the body out of control reflect a temporary return to the fragmented body image that precedes the mirror stage. These bodily mishaps collapse the symbolic coherence of the subject, thrusting them briefly into the real, an experience that is both terrifying and funny. The collection concludes that comedy offers a more generative model of psychoanalysis than tragedy. Tragedy presents failure as final and insurmountable, while comedy transforms failure into opportunity, movement, and new insight. It allows subjects to confront the impossibility at the heart of desire, not with despair but with laughter. Through humor, the unconscious becomes more approachable, its truths more bearable. Comedy acknowledges the limits of the symbolic, the absurdity of human striving, and the failures inherent in desire, yet it also opens pathways for transformation. In that sense, the editors suggest that comedy is not an accessory to psychoanalysis, but its most fitting and illuminating mode.